We have a guy here that was attempting to be a pest that wanted to nest and rest, but the woman clocked it and she was like, absolutely not. She asked the question, am I the a-hole for telling the guy, I don't think we're compatible because I want a partner, not another dependent? Absolutely not the a-hole based on the title alone. She says, get someone else to do it. She's 42, he's 44 and attempting to be a parasite. She says, I was talking to a guy that I've gone on a few dates with before. He recently started messaging me again, and the topic of us moving in together came up. I started thinking about what that would actually look like. I realized I had already paid for the security deposit, first and last month's rent, and furnished my place. He admitted he doesn't cook or grocery shop, doesn't clean, so those things would fall on me. He said he'd pay half the bills, but since I'm already covering everything else, that didn't feel like a real partnership, even though he said he's not going to cook or clean or grocery shop. Absolutely not doing it. When I told him I didn't think we were compatible, he said I was being stubborn and a boss mom who wouldn't take a leap of faith. I asked him what he'd bring to the table, and he said stability. He said he could do all those things I mentioned above that he doesn't do as long as I teach him. Remember, he's 44 years old, and he said he needs to be taught how to cook, clean, and grocery shop. I explained that at 44 years old, I shouldn't have to teach a man how to be a man. I have my own son to raise as I am a single mom. His own sister told him to find a more stable job, but he doesn't seem motivated to grow. Even planning a date with him was difficult because he never followed through or will want to do kiddie stuff like arcades. He accused me of being bougie. I told him if I'm going to do kiddie things, I'll do them with my kids, not with a grown man. I ended the conversation by saying, I'm looking for a partner in all aspects of life, not another dependent. He said, you got it. But now a couple of my friends think I was too harsh and that I emasculated him. I honestly didn't mean to. I just stated the truth as I saw it. Am I the a-hole for being honest about what I want in a relationship? Y'all already know my answer. Absolutely not. This dude is trying to be a leech. He's trying to attach to her and suck her time, energy, and resources. He needs a home, and that's basically that. I did comment on this post. I said he is a pest that needs to nest and rest. He'd be a liability, not a partner. How dare he think you're going to be his servant? I'm disgusted that so many dudes think that women are put here to cook and clean for them. I'm glad you set him straight. Granny Turtle is the one that tagged me in. She says, I laughed at bougie. This is a post I would expect Bourbon Bougie to read on her channel. She's absolutely right. Go look up her YouTube content. She would be proud of your shiny spine, not the a-hole. I am absolutely proud of her shiny spine. She is absolutely correct. I do love this post, and I do appreciate Granny Turtle for tagging me in. Tara says, not the a-hole. Good for you for not taking that extra baggage on board. You have enough to do raising your son. I also failed to see what stability he brings to the table. Very good call. This person says, stable requirement to be looked after, predictable. Every meal needs to be cooked, clothes regularly needing to be washed, bigly stable. This person says, I personally feel like the perfect response to OP's friend would be there was nothing to emasculate to begin with. All right, Pale Question says, this is literally insane. You're telling me that all these years he's been jumping from woman to the point he doesn't know how to cook, grocery shop, or clean? How on earth has he managed that? You 1000% dodged a bullet here. He brings nothing to the table. Now, the OP says he lives with his mother and sister who do all those things for him. That's the reason why he needs to get out. Mom and sister are probably tired of having to do this for an adult man. Ever Dishevel says they're the ones who've emasculated him by never making him need to become an adult. Hail or Shine says, I get this, but also plenty of people reach adulthood and go, maybe I should learn to do these tasks. And then they do. Like his mother and sister never should have done everything for him, but probably the reason he didn't take the initiative to learn how to do these things on his own is not because his mother and sister are so controlling that they wouldn't let him. It's because he likes not having to cook, clean, or grocery shop. If he wanted to learn these things, he absolutely could. Bob Mortimer's butthole says, my mom was a terrible cook. One of the first things I did when I moved out was buy a basic how to cook everything cookbook and start learning. Dude is willfully ignorant if he made it to his age without learning those skills. So Pale Question is responding to the part where she said that he lives with his mom and sister, saying that makes it even worse. He is a grown adult. Just because he's a man, what makes him think the only thing he's meant to contribute is money? Grocery shopping and cleaning at the very least should be shared responsibilities. And then the OP says, and not even money because he clearly stated he would do half, not all. Box B says, then let him stay with mommy. He is a child. Mommy should take care of him. What is he going to do when mommy mommy's not going to stick around forever. And sister's going to get tired of taking care of him. He's 44 years old. This is atrocious. Okay Conversation says, you never should have gone out with him again after you found out that he still lived with his mom. Well, she did. And should have, could have, would have, doesn't really matter. She's living in the present and not really dealing with this. She's like, no. I did want to get to this part from you're not my mom yet, saying, girl, you need to start side-eyeing your friends. This man is in his 40s that doesn't know how to grocery shop because he's literally living like a child in his mother's home, is emasculating himself. Unless severe disability is in play, what a wild thing to open your mouth and claim not knowing how to do. And then Money Engineering says, glad you recognized his incompetence and never let it go further. He won't change ever. This person, Haham, says, oh, you definitely dodged a bullet, not the a-hole. Let me know what you think about this one. Join the conversation, y'all. Ladies, you were not put here to be a servant. I came across this post, or I was sent this post out of the Charlotte Dubray subreddit. She asked the question, am I the a-hole for refusing to clean his house when I visit? Because that's what girlfriends do. You're absolutely not the a-hole. And these dudes need to get used to cooking and cleaning for themselves. I'm tired of them acting helpless. And women need to leave them alone until such time that they are some actual functioning adults. Anyways, she says, so I've been dating my boyfriend for about 8 months. We don't live together, but I spend most weekends at his place. At first, I didn't mind doing little things like wiping down the counter or helping with the dishes. But lately, it feels like I've become his unpaid maid. Every time I go over, his sink is full of dishes, his laundry's piled up, and the bathroom is disgusting. He'll literally say stuff like, can you clean up a bit before bed? Or you're better at cleaning than me, babe. Like, excuse me, I didn't realize I signed up for a part-time cleaning job. Last weekend, I told him straight up that I wasn't cleaning his place anymore. I said it's one thing to help out, but another to clean up after a grown man who clearly doesn't care. He got all defensive and said, that's what girlfriends do. They take care of their man. That line made my blood boil. I told him relationships aren't about gender roles, and if he wants a maid, he can hire one. He said I was acting like a guest in my own boyfriend's house. I said, that's because you treat me like one, except your guest is doing your chores. Now he's sulking and barely talking to me, saying I don't bring anything to the relationship anymore. I feel like I'm being manipulated into feeling guilty for setting boundaries. Am I the a-hole for refusing to clean his place when I visit? I really hope that these ladies start walking away from these dudes that treat them like this. I am honestly disgusted by this. Him talking about what does she bring to the table if she's not cooking and cleaning for him. I am honestly disgusted and I am tired of these people. Please make them lonelier. Either Management says, not the a-hole, but why the hell are you still with this guy? He's doing the dance of the 7 red flags for you. That's called a clue. and his attempt at learned helplessness when it comes to cleaning is pathetic. Being alone is better than this. Time to move on. I tend to say being single is better than this because, oh, you see how my face is just chopped and screwed? I can't get this off. Like, I am disgusted. Any Wolverine is just laughing at the dance of the 7 red flags. I can just kind of see it like, kind of juggling or something. Callisto Sunset says, definitely learned helplessness. If you ever decide to marry this man, it's only going to get worse. He's going to get home from work and expect a hot dinner, house clean, kids bathed and ready for bed, and all while you work a full-time job. I would say he expects wife duties without the ring, but this isn't right even if you were a wife. This would be shared household responsibilities. At my house, if one person cooks, the other cleans. I do the laundry, but my husband cuts the grass. We both vacuum and sweep if it needs to be done, etc. We each keep our work areas clean and tidy. Household duties should be for everyone in the house, not just the women. This guy sounds like, now she typed, a masochistic pig. But I am totally sure she meant misogynistic. But Superculture at the bottom says, you're on the right track. Please Google masochistic, and then kind of does this little blinking emoji. The ladies of this screenshot are just ready to throw him away. Losha says his mentality will not improve. Throw that man away. And then that's what she does, throws him in the rubbish bin. Just toss him away because what the hell? What the hellio? What the helliante? I'll end it with this one. So Vilendra says, not the a-hole. He wants you to be his bang maid, and you need to stop that right away. Not the a-hole. And what does he actually bring to the relationship? Not the a-hole, and this relationship may be done. Nene says, this is the best example of bang maid I have seen on Reddit in ages. Say no to being one. And then we see First Vine Swinger. And she gives this sloth, and the sloth is simply saying no. The answer is no. We're not doing this with these people. Make them be lonelier. Why are you in this relationship with a person that has reduced you to his bang maid? Y'all let me know what you think of this one. So this woman, Lucid Caribou, she described a first date. And yes, it was a coffee date, but it was a terrible first date. So Lucid Caribou says, I'm going to be single forever. Had a date this morning. Obviously, that was yesterday morning. And this is how it went. Number 1, he picked a place and time, which is good. Coffee shop, 9 a.m. Yes, that's a bit early for a weekend, for me anyway, but he has an irregular work schedule, so I was like, okay, no big deal. I can be flexible. Note that this coffee shop was in his neighborhood too, which I had to drive 20 minutes to. After getting up at 7:30 a.m. to shower, get ready, and give myself time to get there, he was late. We didn't actually meet until 9:50 a.m. I'm not a morning person. I only agreed to meet so early to accommodate his schedule, and dude was still nearly an hour late. He did text to let me know, so I wasn't waiting at the coffee shop for an hour, but damn, I could have slept for an extra hour, so I'm already irritated, right? We finally meet, and surprise, surprise, he lied about his height. He said he was 5'10", and dude was slightly shorter than me. I'm 5'7". And no, I wasn't wearing heels or platforms, just regular sneakers. We go inside and he's like, I don't like coffee, so I'm just gonna grab us a seat. And then he left me standing in line to order. Like, huh? Why did you suggest a coffee date if you don't even like coffee? And you can't even wait in line with me and offer to pay for the $6 coffee after I drove 20 minutes to meet you here? The place wasn't busy. There were multiple tables available, and I'm standing in line by myself on a first date. So she has to use her gas. She has to drive further than him, and she buys herself a coffee. Okay, we see that this is going terribly, my bad. All right, so then she says, so anyway, I get my coffee, go to our table, and he has his laptop out. Yep, he brought his laptop. He goes, I know you used to be a teacher, so I want you to read my personal statement for med school. and proceeds to boast about how he used ChatGPT to help him write it and has gotten so many compliments on it. Dear reader, it was the worst piece of slop I've ever read. I couldn't think of one nice thing to say about it. It was one of the most awkward, uncomfortable situations I've ever been in. Number 6, he spent most of the date talking about himself, mansplaining his hobbies or hyping himself up. It felt like he was trying to pitch himself to me. He asked me one question, about myself, which was, what do you like to do for fun? And I was like, bruh, we already had this conversation a couple of days ago. And he was like, no, I don't think so. And kept arguing with me about it until I finally just effing told him again. And he was like, you definitely didn't tell me that. 7, when he was finally done with his monologue, 15 to 20 minutes later, after we first got there, he just stared at me expectantly. Didn't end with a question or anything, just stared at me. So I just sat there in silence. And yes, I probably could have taken control of the conversation at that point, but I was just so effing over it, dude. So eventually I was like, well, what time is it? I've got errands to run, and the date ended shortly after that. Needless to say, I'm so tired of dating. This date wasn't the worst date I've ever been on, but it could have been a lot worse. It could have been a lot worse, to be honest, but I feel like this is how it usually goes, and I'm effing sick of it. I don't want to do this anymore. Girlies, please tell me you can relate. So she typed up most of that yesterday, and so this morning she says, oh my God, I didn't expect this thread to blow up like this. Thank you all so much for validating me and giving me some very good advice. I really appreciate you guys, because to be honest, after this date, I was feeling really down and honestly kind of doubting myself, wondering if I didn't give him enough of a chance. But I see now I actually gave him too much of a chance. I also want to clarify one thing. I was not waiting at the coffee shop for 50 minutes. I never leave for a date without getting confirmation immediately prior. That's it, still on. So I texted at 8:30, and I was at home reading a book until I heard from him at 9:20. 9:20, he confirmed. At which point I decided to go since I was already up and had nothing else going on. I see now that was a fatal error, laughing my butt off. But at that point in time, it wasn't a huge inconvenience for me. Sometimes when we have these conversations about these coffee date situations, some women will jump into the comments and be like, I prefer coffee date situations. Other women will be like, I don't see what the problem is. It's because a dude doesn't really have to do anything. He doesn't really have to plan. He doesn't have to put in much effort. And you can see that this man put in no effort with this. He doesn't even like coffee. He just wanted to meet up with this woman, and she had to put in all of the energy. She had to drive there. She accommodated his schedule. She woke up earlier than she usually wakes up, and he didn't even pay for her coffee, which was $6. Regardless of if you are at a coffee date or a dinner date, these men have got to stop doing so much talking about themselves and be actually interested in the woman that they are on this date with. And he just sat there talking. And this is the reason why I do believe that women are interchangeable for them, is because they don't have a vested interest in getting to know women in the first place. This man was not interested in her at all. He just wanted to talk about himself. He wants to talk about his personal statement for med school. He wants to talk about his hobbies. He just wants to talk about himself and is not very interested in her. She did all of this effort to go meet up with this guy, and he wasn't even interested in anything about her. I can understand why she doesn't want to do this anymore, because why date somebody that has no interest in who you are really? And then we have this woman, Afro hippie vibes, saying, we all have been there. Dating is so much fun when you only date guys who are worth the time. And that's where women are getting stuck. Where do you find the guys who are worth the time? She says, I'd much rather situations end because we're not compatible than because he's disrespectful. Hope it gets to be more fun soon. This person, Love the Ashley Ann, says, where are you finding guys worth the time? I have firm boundaries and still find dating exhausting. Now, we have a man, and I know that he's a man, because he says, how about cutting him some slack? I don't think he went home thinking he aced the date either. And the woman at the bottom is like, why should she cut him some slack? Just why? We are going to come back to this man in just a moment. Miss Melissa says he wanted free labor for feedback on his personal statement. At that point, I would have said, I don't work on dates. And it wasn't even a date. She paid for her own coffee and she drove there out of her way and accommodated his schedule. This does not really sound like a date to me. She says $50 paid up front for a read, plus an extra $100 if you want revisions, also paid up front. Seriously, start charging these people when they try to exploit free labor from you. Also, he's not getting into med school. Being a doctor requires giving a about other people. She says, totally agree. I wanted to say something, but I kept waiting for him to be like, nah, I'm just messing with you, LOL. But he was totally serious. I was so taken aback by it. So I just read it and that gave him absolutely zero feedback because bro, WTF. I told you I was going to come back to this dude. Listen to what he says here. You know what I'm getting from this? He's lonely. He has no one to talk to. So lonely, he lied to you about his height to make sure you'd show up so he could show you his thing for med school and use you for the free labor. He was so excited he was rambling on and on about him, and not taking any interest in her. Was it okay to lie? No. Was it okay to make you wait another 50 minutes? No. But was he otherwise a nice guy? He must have been. He must have left a good first impression. Otherwise, you wouldn't have agreed to a date. Was the date horrible? Maybe. A lot went wrong, and then he leaves it at but. He literally leaves it there for several hours. Cupalnista says, sure, he lied to you, disrespected your time, treated you like you exist for his benefit, showed no interest in your life, but he's probably a really nice guy. Do you offer excuses for men who strike their partners when they're frustrated too? Then he finally came back hours later saying, I did not make excuses. All I said was he sounds lonely and desperate. Of course he messed up. But isn't everybody allowed to mess up once in a while? Are you perfect? It doesn't matter. You only really get one chance to have a first date. And Maddie says no one said he couldn't mess up, but messing up and someone understanding that someone messed up isn't a free pass, and thus she doesn't have to give him another chance based on her own boundaries. More than one thing can be true at once, and maybe you don't understand what an excuse is, but claiming that he made a mistake and might be lonely as a reason for his mistake is absolutely an excuse. You use these things as a reason she should cut him some slack. Did you not? And then he says, if we don't look past such things, we really might end up alone and single, all of us. So that's what he's saying. But the thing is, the men are the ones that are having issues making friends and, relating to people. So they need to figure out, they need to actually listen to women and start taking feedback and changing things. The women will be fine. The women are opting out on purpose. Anyways, Maddie says people are allowed to have boundaries. People are also allowed not settle. All people have flexible, rigid, and negotiable boundaries. He was flexible and negotiable until she reached her rigid boundaries. People aren't entitled to a chance if a person does not see them as a good match. He should move on. She is. Settling is what creates resentment and bad relationships based on imagined potential rather than the reality of who someone is. That is perfect, and we're going to end this. Dating is about figuring out who you're compatible with and who you're not. Cross them off the list. Let me know what you think. Like, comment, and share. Emily May talks about unpaid work and tried to make it a concept that was easy for people to chew on. She says, I think the concept of unpaid work is clearest when it comes to disability care and elder care. A family member can do this care for free, but it means that they are not able to do paid work. And if they stopped doing it, the cost to replace their labor would be astronomical because time is limited. You cannot work here with your elderly family member or a disabled family member and be outside in the workforce. So she makes sense right there. That should be easy, but of course people still push back. Thomas says, this is why extended family living closely together is important. A large family can absorb almost any hardship. There's a reason why our society guides people to living alone in apartments as if it's the best option. Emily says to that man, a large family, but it's women. Now we have this person lost in inner, I don't know what that SP is, maybe space, lost in inner space, saying, yeah, because there's a lot of things men simply physically can't do, most things that are neither combat storytelling nor science. They're like soldier morph termites, necessary for society, but incapable of the day-to-day elements of participating in their own survival. That is a bunch of BS right there, saying that men are physically incapable of doing things. So she asked the question, what can men physically not do? Listen to this answer. Vacuum and dust. Men cannot vacuum and dust. They've got horrible detail vision, the poor creatures. Missed a spot, doesn't remotely begin to cover it. Yeah, that is ridiculous. You get about as good as results strapping a mop to a house cat. Those also can't see for. That is a terrible excuse. That is a whole mess. Aaron says, nope, that's intentional. Lost in Inner Space says, I cannot believe that on the grounds that they can't all be this good at lying and acting. Yes, they absolutely can, because they don't want to do it. Emily says, if they know someone else will just do it, they don't have to learn. But Marines seem to be able to clean pretty well. Okay, we got a woman that's coming in to excuse everything. Heidi says, depends on what they'd be doing otherwise and the value they place on the work themselves. Oh, okay, so the people that are doing paid care work, they don't get paid. They should be getting paid, but they don't. But the men on the outside, they value themselves. The caretakers obviously don't. All right, she says, if they give up a great career and it's a burden, then that's different than them giving up something that they don't value as much as providing the care. Some women give up their jobs because they don't have a choice, not because they don't value themselves or the work that they were doing. Emily says it doesn't really matter. It's unpaid work regardless. And listen to her response. Lots of things are unpaid work, though. Volunteering is unpaid work. Cooking myself dinner is unpaid work. Anytime I don't hire someone to do a task is unpaid work. And she says, correct. Not all unpaid work prevents you from doing paid work, though, but full-time caregiving can. So if you make yourself dinner, you can still go to work. If you volunteer for a weekend or for Thanksgiving morning, you could still go to work. These people just don't have the ability to hear what she's saying and respond appropriately, because she's talking about full-time caregiving, and they're giving these dumb excuses or these dumb examples that don't even match what she's saying. Now, Johnston down here says astronomical as in $10 an hour. He thinks that caregivers are only getting $10 an hour. But down at the bottom, she says, let's say $10 an hour for 24-hour care would get pretty expensive. And it absolutely would. And it's hard work. Moving people is hard work, especially if somebody is dead weight. Let's say that the person can't move anything for themselves. You could really hurt your back. You could have, all kind of stressors. A lot of the times caregivers end up dying before the person that they are taking care of. Diane says childcare too, but Emily says yes, but if we don't want to do that, you're a selfish, evil woman. And then Mad T participant says, I kind of resent when people consider stuff like this work, to be honest. I take care of the people in my life because it's meaningful and I care about them and they need it. It's not the same thing as work, but it's still labor. It's still laborious. You still have to be there, and you're putting your time, energy, and resources there, and you're not going out to work over there. I kind of resent this. Well, okay. But she says, helping the people in your life is not equal to full-time caregiving, but he kind of resents having this conversation. Mad T participant says, I know the difference on a personal level, and I'm not here to pick a fight, just going off on a tangent. But in my mind, I can't see caregiving as work, because viewing it that way eventually just builds resentment. Emily says, have you ever been a full-time caregiver? And then Mad T says, yes, there are varying degrees to what you're asking, but yes, I would say so. Emily says, being a full-time caregiver for years on end is 100% being fully responsible for another human, meaning you did not do that caregiving. I'm sorry, if you did not do that caregiving, something terrible would happen. Most people end up doing it because they love who they are caring for, and burnout and resentment are almost inevitable. And then Mad T says, burnout and resentment need to be managed. This gets at what I'm speaking to be honest. Is chopping, stacking a wood pile work? If I'm doing it for your house, yes. If I'm doing it for my house, no. I apply this to caregiving too, because framing it as work does eventually build resentment. But it's still labor regardless. Your body still gets tired regardless. That's what people are failing to comprehend or even act like they give a damn about understanding. Anyways, Lucas at the bottom says, there are government programs that pay family members to provide respite care for other family members with disabilities. Michelle P. Waiver Services is one. My sister is nonverbal and wheelchair bound with cerebral palsy. My mom only trusts family members with her. And the way the government is cutting these services, and I know that they could be state services, there could be federal services, but they are cutting food stamps. They're cutting all kinds of things that provide for the people that might be caretakers. It's about to get really, really ugly because these people could be out working in the workforce, but they can't if they are full-time caregivers, and there are not always enough resources to provide for them. And them is usually women. And this is another one of the reasons why women make less as far as wages overall, because women are typically the ones that are full-time caregivers. With that, I'm going to leave this. I just wanted y'all to see how obtuse some of these people are or how they act. And this is one of the reasons why women can't really get past this whole wage gap conversation, how we can't get past some of these conversations that really do impact women. And when things impact women, they impact the elderly, they impact the children, they impact the disabled, because women are typically the ones, the caregivers. So when people get so ecstatic like they are about food stamps being cut, or all of these social safety nets getting cut, they're like, yes, the lazy people can get to work. This impacts people. And this is going to impact folks further out than people are willing to understand. They just think that it's just going to impact the lazy people that don't want to get jobs. Anyways, let me know what you think about this one.
Ugh, you people are so good at rage baiting me, my god. Here again to remind you that feminism is not stopping you from baking in your kitchen. And women didn't need propaganda to become feminists. All they needed was exposure to men who financially abused them and then prevented them from divorce, beat them and then prevented them from divorce, genitally mutilated them, made marital rape legal, barred them from owning their own bank accounts, credit cards, land, property, and had them committed or lobotomized against their will. You know, people on the right, trad wives, they love to talk about how people on the left, Democrats, leftists, whomever, have a perpetual victim complex. But in reality, it's them, it's y'all. You are committed to this narrative that feminists are attacking your ability and right to be in the kitchen barefoot and pregnant. No one is stopping you.